Yo, what's good everyone? Today I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite tournament or GPP plays for this Week 17 NFL Draftkings main slate, and like I always do here in these videos, I'm going to kick it off with a couple of my favorite game stacks, and then we'll dive into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks. With that being said, let's dive right into this. And we're going to kick things off here with those game stacks, and one of the games I like targeting here this week from a stacking perspective is that game between the Cardinals and Eagles, and I think we can approach this game from either side. If you wanted to stack up Jalen Hurts, who I talked about in my cash plays video yesterday, I have no problem with that. But Kyler Murray in the Arizona side is definitely going to be lower owned, so I like stacking up Murray here with Trey McBride as #1 pass catcher and really become a wide receiver in that Cardinals offense, and then we can run it back with any two Eagles players. I went with DeAndre Swift and Dallas Goedert here just because they're very affordable, but if you want to mix in AJ Brown or Devontae Smith, I have no problem with that. All three of those top pass catchers for the Eagles are projected at 7% ownership or less this weekend, so I'm not too concerned about any one of those guys being too popular to roster. Again, I went with Swift and Goddard here due to how affordable they are. But whatever players you do decide to roster from the Eagles side, they're going to be in a good spot here because this Cardinals defense is abysmal across the board, ranking 31st overall in both defensive pass DVOA and defensive rush DVOA. Now, the implied total in this game is at 48 points this weekend. That's the second most on the main slate. Definitely some shootout potential there. Again, I like stacking up McBride here because he's basically the #1 wide receiver in this offense right now, even though he plays at the tight end position. Since week 10 with Kyler Murray, he's seen a 26% target share, 31% first read share, and this Eagles secondary is not great, ranking 23rd out of 32 teams in defensive pass DVOA. And then another game that I like targeting from a stacking perspective this week, and is that game between the Texans and Titans, and I like stacking up CJ Stroud with Nico Collins and Noah Brown, and then running it back with DeAndre Hopkins. We have an implied total of 44 points on this game here, ranking 4th out of 13 games on the main slate, and I like stacking up the Texans side of things because this secondary for the Titans has not been good all year long. They weren't good last year. I feel like I've talked about that all year long. They currently rank 25th overall in defensive pass DVOA, while having allowed 41.5 Draftkings points per game to the wide receiver position. That's the 6th most in the NFL. And since week 10, this Texans defense has not been great against perimeter wide receivers, allowing the 3rd most PPR points and 5th most receiving yards to wide receivers, which is why I like running it back with DeAndre Hopkins. Now, folks, before we dive into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. I know the NFL season is starting to wrap up here, but I'm going to be making a tournament or GPP video for Week 18, and then I plan to make some content for the NFL playoffs as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Alright, now diving into some of these individual plays and stacks here, we're going to kick it off at the quarterback position, and I told myself I wasn't going to go back to this guy. But man, at $5,500, I don't mind Derek Carr here, the New Orleans Saints, on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where we would need 22 points for him to hit 4x value. Because if we look back to week 12 here, he's actually been playing some decent football, ranking 7th of all quarterbacks in yards per attempt, 8th in passer rating, and 8th in high accuracy throws. And that bodes well against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary, who have allowed the most passing yards since week 11, 8th highest yards per attempt, and the 9th most fantasy points to the quarterback position. Plus, this is a must-win game here for the New Orleans Saints if they want to stay in playoff contention. Now, moving on to the running backs here, and I'm going to highlight two running backs who are projecting for much lower ownership than I expected heading into this Sunday, so I'll take advantage of that in my tournament lineups. Obviously, some nice value on this slate here if Pacheco misses for the Chiefs this Sunday. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looks nice in the mid-5K range. Plus, it sounds like Josh Jacobs is doubtful for the Raiders this week. That puts Zamir White into play at $5,100. But I wanted to highlight Rachaad White here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, priced at $7,600 this week in a matchup at home against the New Orleans Saints, where we would need 30.4 DraftKings points for him to hit 4x value. And I understand we have Christian McCaffrey and Kyron Williams on this slate, higher priced running backs who will be garnering a lot of that ownership. But having Rachaad White at 9% ownership, or projected for 9% ownership this week, is something I will take advantage of. He has truly been awesome this year, and volume won't be an issue in this matchup. He's averaging close to 20 touches per game on the season and 92 total yards per game on the season, plus he's been a touchdown monster. And I know the New Orleans Saints are notorious for being good at stopping the run, but if you look at their stats dating back to week 11, this defense has not been the same. They've allowed the second most rushing yards per game to the running back position, and they've had the 8th most missed tackles. That doesn't seem like a defense that I'm too scared of. And then another running back who I think is going overlooked this week is Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is more expensive here at $7,200 as well, but a great matchup against the Carolina Panthers, where we would need 28.8 DraftKings points for him to hit 4x value. Now, if you look at his numbers here, Travis Etienne's, they have not been as good here in the second half of the season as they were in the first half of the season, but this does seem like a get-right spot for him, as Carolina Panthers defense has been abysmal against the run all year long, ranking dead last in the NFL in defensive rush DVOA, while allowing 27.6 DraftKings points per game to the running back position this year. That's the 4th most in the NFL, and I'm looking at the projections right now, and we have Travis Etienne coming in around 5% ownership. Again, I'll take advantage of that in tournaments. And then we're on to the wide receivers, and I actually mentioned this last week. Anytime you're going to give me Tyreek Hill in tournaments at 10% ownership or less, I will take advantage of that. He's projected around 8% ownership here this week, and in a matchup on the road against the Baltimore Ravens, where he's priced at $9,300, and we need 37.2 DraftKings points for him to hit 4x value. Certainly a big number there, we're all aware of that, but we know the upside that Tyreek Hill offers really in any given matchup. Now, the Ravens defense here run a too-high safety about 54% of the time, and versus too-high safety looks this year, Tyreek Hill has a 30% target share, 44% air yard share, and a 37% first read share. Plus, with Jaden Waddle doubtful here on Sunday, I think those numbers go up even more. The next guy I got on my list here then is Adam Thielen of the Carolina Panthers, priced at $5,900 this weekend in a matchup on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars, where we would need 23.6 DraftKings points for him to hit 4x value. Now, kind of a similar situation to Travis Etienne, who I highlighted earlier, actually playing him in this game. Adam Thielen was awesome in the first half of this season, but has really regressed here in the second half of the season. But I do like this spot for him to get right. Since week 10, this Jaguars defense has really struggled, especially against slot wide receivers, having allowed the 5th most PPR points to slot wide receivers and the 5th highest passer rating. And then a value wide receiver that I like here this week is Rashid Shaheed of the New Orleans Saints. He's a cheap stacking piece with Derek Carr, priced at $4,600 here on the road against the Buccaneers, where we would need 18.4 DraftKings points for him to hit 4x value. Now, ever since Michael Thomas was put on the IR, Shaheed's numbers have looked really nice. He's seen a 20% target share, 27% air yard share, and a 23% first read share. I'll take advantage of those numbers for a guy priced here in the mid 4K range. Plus, again, this Buccaneers secondary is not very good, having allowed 44.2 DraftKings points per game to the wide receiver position this year. That's the 3rd most in the NFL. Now, when it comes to a tight end here this week, I'm just going to highlight one on the tournament side of things. Highlighted Trey McBride and Dallas Goedert earlier, and then I talked about a bunch of value tight ends in my cash plays video yesterday. So again, if you haven't watched that yet, make sure you go do that. But I'm going to highlight Isaiah Likely here, the Baltimore Ravens. Do like this price at $4,600 in a matchup at home against the Miami Dolphins, where we would need 18.4 DraftKings points for him to hit 4x value. Now, ever since Mark Andrews went on the IR and Likely has become the starting tight end in Baltimore, he's seen a 16% target share, 16% first read share, and ranks 5th overall in terms of tight ends when it comes to fantasy scoring. Now, I'm not going to say this is a smash matchup for Likely here against this Dolphins secondary, who have played well as of late, but they've also allowed the 10th most receptions to the tight end position this year. I certainly don't mind that, but what I really like about this play is how affordable he is at $4,600 and the shootout potential in this game between the Ravens and Dolphins. And then when it comes to a defense here this week, I did talk about the Texans and Broncos in my cash plays video yesterday. They're absolutely going to be in my tournament lineups as well, but one tournament defense that I liked in particular was the Indianapolis Colts, priced at $3,200 in a matchup at home against the Raiders, where we would need 12.8 DraftKings points for them to hit 4x value. Now, last week they weren't great on the road against the Falcons, but if you look at their 6 games prior to that, they were playing some really good ball. They had racked up 25 sacks quarterbacks in that 6-game stretch, 4.2 per game. They forced 13 turnovers and racked up 7, 11, 14, 16, 17, and 26 DraftKings points. I'll absolutely take advantage of that for a defense priced here at $3,200 against a rookie quarterback in Aiden O'Connell, who has not been great this year in my opinion. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great weekend here, folks. Let's win some money on this Week 17 main slate. And in the meantime, I'm out of here.